All right. Hey everyone. So we are live, and today is 24th April, and we are covering about Meshery certification, that is the Certified Meshery Contributor Certification. So if you're new to the call, this is the CNCF one of its kind certification for Meshery contributors, and it's recognized one. It's free and anyone can take it up. So in this call, we'll be covering about a lot of stuff related to Meshery UI. That's the current unit we are currently on. And in the past calls, we have covered dedicated. So there are 5 units in this. If I just go over to show up a quick demo of the certification. So if you go to the Meshery Cloud, you can enroll in this certification and get this credential, and then you can show off your credentials on your socials. It contains 5 units. Each of it covers different Meshery architectural domains. For example, Meshery CLI, that is the command line interface of Meshery that helps to interact with Meshery server, Meshery extensibility, models, server, and currently we are covering the last one, the UI one. You can find dedicated recordings for each of the units in the certification, the ones that we are hosting in this call, and the ones that are already some of the resources mentioned in the certification that are self-paced training series, for example. Each of the units have some of the prerequisites. And since it's completely self-paced, so you can give it or conduct it on your own pace. Just uh, attempt 1 unit, and if you're done, you can leave up to some time and then come back to another, continue another unit. But it has some prerequisites that point to our documentation. So we'll be talking about this thing today. In the last session, so today me and Kavita will be sharing, and I'll be talking about notification center, what exactly it is, and why do we need it, and some demo around the Mystery Playground. I hope we are live. Yeah. Okay. So Meshery is the notification center in Meshery. As you can see over here, it's a dedicated panel where it helps you monitor and understand and respond to your events that happens across your system. So what exactly happens is that Meshery server sends or triggers some of the events, and on this Meshery UI, these events get uh, represented as notifications. For example, these events could be when you save a design, when you are validating your deployments, or some of the events that has been returned from mesh sync, for example, when you are updating your relationships in Canvas. There are two services or deployment, there are two components, for example, and you are trying to play with some of the relationships. So this will trigger n number of notifications. So this helps to see important updates to your workload and infrastructure. So you can toggle the notification panel in Meshery Playground, or if you locally build the Meshery UI, there's a nice filter option. So the notifications are categorized in several buckets that are responsible for every resource. For example, you can filter it by severity. And if the severity here is error, so it will show all the red looking notifications that, for example, if you fail to import a design or something like that. And you can also filter. So currently the default filter is unread, where these are the notifications that have, it's quite self-explanatory, not been read. You can filter the notifications by author. There are two types of author. One is the user, that is you, and one is the system. So the event could be triggered by you or the system. So distinctions between it. But we'll be covering this in the documentation, for example. And when we click any of the notification, so we can see a user and a Meshery logo. So this type of design shows or represents that this event is triggered by a user and then it's handled by the system. So that's why it's showing the one for the user, that's the author, and the one that is the Meshery, that is the system. And if we encounter certain events, for example, over here, that are only triggered by via system, then it will doesn't have this Meshery system card or that circular representation of the logo. So over here, it's documented that the icon type Meshery logo only, so it has system triggered event and initiated automatically by Meshery. For example, syncing errors or some import failures by default. And if we have both the logos, then that's a user triggered event. The user performed an action and Meshery processed it. Example, registering a Kubernetes context. If we only have a user FTAR that is rare, then that is completely isolated with the user and no system is involved with it. These actions are generated dynamically using the events metadata. We'll be talking about what is metadata and how the formatters work in these events. But this is something like a visual representation of system and user triggered events. And this is a design document that you can open in the Meshery playground. This is when the system, that is the Meshery only, has triggered some events to the infra, and then we got up a notification after we have prepared an event. This is related to user plus Meshery. User triggered an event, Meshery processes it or apply an operation, then it will just send out the notification in the panel. Um, so this over here is different severity, different levels. For example, the one that I showed, that is severity error. We have warnings, different levels for success, and status codes, red and unread. So this is a brief overview how system notification works. And then we do have, if you want to contribute to how you can, um, yeah, how you can uh, contribute in this e-notification center and this event sign and what is the flow of it. So this is the correct document for it. So I'll be explaining the process of how the flow works. We do have something. This is a doc that I prepared. So whenever a event has occurred, for example, you have deployed a design in Canvas, then the server firstly exposes the event, and after the service has exposed the event, the UI fetches paginated events over REST API using the RTK query. So the paginated events means the events when they are fetched from the backend, they're not fetched completely as a whole one chunk. They are fetched by smaller chunks, pages by pages, and they use the RTK query hooks. For example, there's one of the hooks that are um, over here implemented, that is get events. So this get events hook triggers the API slash system events API. And we can also have some demo around it. We can query this API and see what is the live result that we are getting. For example, if we go to the Meshery playground, you can also do this from your local host when you build the Meshery UI. But currently I will be using Meshery Playground for this session. So if we go to API system events, we'll be getting a very long list of what all the events the backend is storing, for example. So each of the event has an action which triggered it, a category defined, for example, user role, and then description. And so this is an important field which we'll be talking about. That is the metadata null. Currently, this is null, but we do have a specific purpose when an event carries a metadata to list out or present it nicer in the formatting when we are showing it in the notification center, for example. It has a system ID updated at a timestamp and the user ID. And if we go back to our Meshery playground, mm, oh yeah, I think I was not sharing this one. So I was talking about the user flow. The UI fetches paginated events from REST API using REST API or RTK query clients. And there's these events are stored in the front end globally using Redux. And then these over here, when we have fetched the events, then we subscribe to the incoming events over GraphQL. So there are two type of APIs being used. One is the GraphQL and one is the REST API method. REST for fetching the paginated list and GraphQL for subscribing the incoming events. And when a subscribed event arrives, so such as user ID, so it normalizes these names and dispatches a push event. Push event means when we are normalizing the events. So we'll be getting this at the front end user ID and the created at these type of fields. And then over there, mutations are run over the events, for example. This is somewhat a flow. If we walk through some of the handlers, this is one of it that updates the status from red to unread after we have selected it. And so when we trigger this handler, so the first state is updated in the backend, and then backend gets synced. So sorry, the front end gets synced using Redux, and then this updates the states. So all the state management is done by Redux Toolkit. We do also have something called as bulk operations that allow users to perform like deleting multiple notification or changing the status from read to unread. So to bulk select all the notifications, we can use these checkboxes and the options that we have provided in the Meshery UI. Moving on to another important section, that is the metadata formatter. So each time a event is being invoked, it either could have the metadata information that we just also got in the API response. If we do, yeah, so this is an example generic event response with no specific formatter over here. And this is metadata broken endpoint and doc link. And this one is a structured error metadata event. It says a error code that has been occurred, long description, and the probable cause why the error occurred. For example, the target namespace did not exist, create the namespace, and with a suggested remediation. So we do include this metadata to nicely format and display it in the notification UI. That's what is the purpose of this metadata formatter, because we don't want to list out this long list of JSON in our panel, notification panel. So we do use specific formats for different specific type of data. The one I just The one example was there that was related to error. And we do also support some dynamic formatters. So dynamic formatters um, update their schema when they are rendering the error. It could be, for example, an array, it could be key value pairs, it could be nested objects. So we have two types of one is specific format and one is dynamic. And these are all the schemas or the structure of what we get, and then we style it to show it in the notification UI. Uh, the property key files directories. So this is quite self-explanatory that it falls back to a property-based formatting. If no event-specific formatter is found, then it just renders it, yes, as it is being the one that I got in the Meshery API. We do have the code base for it is in, if we navigate it under the UI section, we do have components, and in the notification center block, we have all the code for it. We do have all the formatters listed out. These are multiple type of formatters: error, missing, events. These are the types of event-specific notification formatters that render specific events. For example, this is the common formatter. The following reusable components standardize how notification links, empty states, and downloadable traces are displayed. This displays normally a link and the children of it. If we do have an empty state in the event, then we have no specific data available. Then it just shows the description of the event. We do have something called as an error formatter that has three fields: the long description, probable cause, suggested remediation. That's around how it's listed in the schema for it. And this is how it looks like. Another one is the model registration formatter. So if you're importing any models and you want to get specific notifications related to that, for example, this is an success imported model. Somebody imported the name of the model and the specific components. So this is how it's being formatted using another model registration formatter. We do also have similar thing for relationship evaluation formatter, for example. So when each of the relationships in two components is changed, it says that, okay, relationship evaluation completed for this design, deploy Meshery using Meshery X, and listing each of the components or the relationships that have been added. So yeah. Another one is the dry run formatter. So basically, these are the different types of formatter we use to list out the type of message in the notification UI. Deployment summary formatter is another one of it. And property formatters, property link formatters. So when an event does not match in this type, so these two formatters, property formatter and property link, they are used to format and render specific metadata fields in a structured and visually appealing way. It uses something like a short description. But yeah, I think it is being used when an event does not have a specific event type formatter. So you can check out the code base of how it works, if the code is written in TypeScript and how it interacts with the backend. So yeah, this was about the notification UI, and I would like to hand off the stage to Kavita now. We'll be talking more about Meshery UI and end-to-end playwright tests.
Thank you, Ronak. We actually share the screen. So, yeah. So, we will be actually moving on to look at dashboard widgets. In case of dashboard, if you have actually seen in Meshery UI locally, you can see different types of widgets that are available here. You can actually edit and then add those widgets into your dashboard in local. So this is actually about contributing to Meshery UI dashboard widgets. So if this is actually because we want to actually extend the interface and then add individual widgets. That is also one way of adding a composability or accessibility to the Meshery dashboard. Here there is a problem with the path over here. Instead of dashboard component, it is just dashboard in the code right now. So yeah, dashboard widgets. This is the place where all the widgets exist. And you might be seeing if you, let me actually open that locally. So yeah, so there are things like help center widget. It uses uh, plain card for creating that, and that is actually importing much of the things that you have there is actually imported from assistant. This is one example in my design widget using the design card. That's also using importing the basic skeleton from assistant and then adding data later in the return over here. So let's move back to that. Yeah. So we just, what it does is like it takes up REST data, GraphQL or RSS values, and displays the static links or interactive components in there. And it includes icons and thumbnails for user family. So creating a new widget, you just have to go to this particular place and then add your blog.js. This is uh, a sample way to create the latest blogs inside the widgets folder. And for adding the thumbnails, you can see inside the code base. If you go to thumbnails, you will see all the cluster overview. This is actually the overview which you get inside the Meshery dashboard. Um, and it will be actually populating. This is actually just the thumbnail for that. This is the thumbnail for the help center, which we saw, the latest blogs, etc. These are the thumbnails that are available. So these are mostly PNG format, and then when you actually create widgets, you if you are creating something, uh, some other part, you just do the import in this eh, as shown in this example. And registering the widget, you have this get widget .js. Here you add the latest blocks inside the get widgets, export the constants that you are actually exporting. So somewhere down the line here, this is the latest block that was actually added. And the mandatory values are title, component is enabled, default sizing and thumbnail. These values you should actually give so that it is actually rendered properly. And this is actually the way you would add it to a default layout because you have this file. The layouts are defined per screen's breaking point, like how responsive, when you tell about breaking point is actually related to how responsive the screen is. It's to ensure that the dashboard looks good in multiple devices. And we will be using SMXS XSS. People who have actually been working with UI would know like how that is added. So there are actually a couple of layout field descriptions also. This you can actually read through and then understand. So the best practices while creating widgets is that the naming you should always use uppercase keys. My designs for clarity, and icons should be consistent with the design system icons that you have. Like when you use system import from system, much of the problems will be resolved and uniformity will be actually there across. And use theme shall be actually used for accessing tokens, and there should be actually responsiveness and reusability also is given in importance. um, Obviously include a thumbnail, and if you have if the widget actually accesses protected resources, you should actually ensure that the user has the proper states and rules. I think most of the other things that you have here can be just self-explanatory and you can read through this. But today, because of lack of time, we have just half an hour, and we have another big important topic. I will have to, jump to the next part in this, which is related to Meshery end-to-end tests. So in Meshery UI end-to-end test, like in CLI, in the previous sessions, we had actually seen that we have used something called bats to run the Meshery CTL tests. And now we are actually using something called Playwright, which is similar to running um, Cy- Cypress or uh, you know other tools like Selenium. But there is actually significant advantage while using E2E tests using Playwright. So what are UI tests? They are end-to-end UI tests. You might be already knowing that what exactly functional test is. With respect to unit test, if you are actually checking, you would be actually checking for a particular functionality, whether it is actually working properly or not. But in case of end-to-end tests, it's like simulates the real user interactions in the browser and verifies whether the full uh, flow of uh, control is okay and working properly with the UI and backend integration. Um, there are a lot of there are a lot of tools out there, but why we are using Playwright is actually because first one is that it's actually multi-browser, so it has multi-browser support. You can do tests on Firefox or any other um, any other Chromium based browsers, and it's fast and furious. It means that it actually runs the test parallelly. And one of the advantages of running tests parallelly is that in the CI, it will be actually running fast and then not waiting for the whole test to be run serially and then uh, fail later. And it has a lot of support for dev tooling. One of the things that is recommended here is to install the Playwright extension for Visual VS Code if you are using VS Code for development. Um, so why E2E testing matters in Meshery? Because Meshery is actually a little bit complex. When you have actually seen the repository overview in the newcomers meeting, also you might have found out that there are a lot of repositories, and right now Meshery, the core part of Meshery lives in the or called Meshery, and then the auxiliary things like the adapters and all things in the Meshery. extension or and so E2E test helps us to prevent regressions across the UI workflows, and it actually validates if you are working on a particular feature that requires changes in both front end and back end. It validates the functionality across different configurations. In the previous few sessions, we had covered what exactly is local and remote providers. Um, and yeah, there is actually support for both of them, and it improves confidence in every PR. This is actually run as uh, action. I can show you this. Yeah, if you go to Meshery report, go to actions. You have Meshery UI and server. Here you can see that there is actually a pull request over here. You can go to UI end-to-end test. See, run playwright end-to-end test. It will give you the logs part first, and there is something called upload playwright test. This is something you can download this artifact and then add to trace.playwright.dev to understand like how exactly the test has been actually run. That's one thing. So I think the somewhere down the line there is yeah, the trace viewer link. You can after this meeting you can actually try it out. Um, yeah. So in case of let's actually see in the code where exactly it is located. So in Meshery repo, when you clone it, you'd have the UI folder. Inside that, uh, the test folder, E2E. This is the place where the end-to-end tests reside, as the name suggests. And there is one file called playwright.config.js at the root folder of UI, which has the projects defined for major browsers. There's a setup that's actually there to for a few tests you have to actually run this particular setup. So it's related to this, and so yeah, there is actually a remote setup and then local setup. So these are the ways in which the setup and the dependencies are actually saved here. So going back to the documentation, um, there is this documentation. It's open, but I'll still open in a new tab so that we don't get confused. So what are the prerequisites of for running the test? There should be like if you are running some tests related to a certain provider, there should be a valid account created for the chosen provider, a compatible browser such as Chromium based browser like or Firefox, and installation of Golang. You might have already done that if you have tried uh, running UI or running the server previously. So it's actually installation of Golang. The current supported version of Golang is Go 1.25, and the Node version is actually 20 above. Um, so use the make files for native OS build. Um, and Kubernetes clusters are required for some test cases. Adapters are required for some test cases. So these are the values that you should be actually configuring for the environment variables. If you want to run everything successfully, but it is possible that some of the uh, tests are not running properly. That's fine. You can actually see how it has actually turned up in my local when I try to run today. I have the Meshery running here. using Minikube and then the Kubernetes setup. So yeah, these are the tests that are actually failing. These are passing. You can actually take a look at uh, all of those tests after running it initially. So during the test phase, it uses the credentials in this directory. So as a way to protect sensitive data, it's the all the .env files are actually added to gitignore. If you inspect that in the gitignore file, you can actually see that. Um, so yeah, so starting up Meshery UI and server, this is actually critical before running the tests. Uh, there are two types of build, Docker based build and native OS build, but native OS build is actually recommended because much of the things will actually work fine there. So if you run make UI hyphen build, that actually installs and builds the Next.js application for both UI and UI provider. Make build server creates the Golang binary file. I can actually show you that here. This main, this is actually created using the make build server today. And make server binary, it will actually run the Meshery server in localhost port 9081. Um, so run to set up playwright, you run make UI setup, and to run all the test projects and the test cases, you write make UI tests. Mhm. So when you install the playwright uh, extension in VS Code, the playwright extension, you can actually see that there is a in the testing test explorer, you can see like pick locator and all those additional things. So it might actually tell you to install playwright. I using this command palette. I would recommend you not to do that because that would be installing the latest one. To ensure that it runs successfully, what we have here inside our dependencies defined. I think inside package.json. Yeah. We have the dependencies here. So ensure that you do the you run the make command itself, which would install playwright for you rather than installing the latest one. That is better for us to run it say, properly. There is an exception related to like a warning related to the unsafe environment. So there it is possible to run the test cases with the playwright CLI also. If you see inside the previous file, uh, package.json itself, you can find how we are actually running the E2E. So npx playwright test. It's possible to run. I mean, there is the local. There is the documentation for playwright, um, which has been linked here in the slide itself, somewhere down, and it's better to look at it, and then it's possible to run individual tests also instead of this test suite. So it's you can actually explore more on that. Uh, so yeah, uh, testing local and remote provider, you would have to set up the auth path uh, properly for the storage state. And if the provider is Meshery, run this test, something like that will be used for running uh, the test. Um, so, uh, debugging on GitHub Actions, as I shown you, you can take the artifact download and then upload it to this drag and drop the playwright trace file to load how exactly it is working properly. That is one way you can look into it and then debug. So there are a couple of best practices when we talk about it. Uh, when you run the test suite, playwright might actually select uh, some random selectors which might not actually work properly. So use save stable selectors, and it's better to keep the tests isolated so that once you actually run the test, the cleanup of a state of one test will not actually affect another test. And it's since we have actually told earlier itself that playwright runs the test parallelly, so it's possible that while you are actually developing the UI test, it's better to run it a few times to see that it's working properly. And it can also happen that this working properly for you in local, but in the CI, it might not actually work properly. There can be for even when you actually run it in CI, uh, the test will be run against master branch and not against your own branch. So that could also be one reason why it is failing there. And there are a couple of secrets associated with this particular running, which if not every contributor will be actually able to access. It might be accessible to only few maintainers or people who had been actually long there, uh, who have actually become maintainers to look at it. And also the respect the CI differences that you actually might see when you run locally versus when you run in CI. And the trace viewer, we already saw it earlier. So what's the contribution flow? There is the Meshery test plan, which is a comprehensive list uh, for tests that are actually there. This is actually version A 0.8.0. And yeah, you might actually want to get in touch with the uh, E2E test maintainers, most probably with Ian or people who are actually well versed with that, to see whether apps and want help. These are still required to be done or not. And then just pick up, have a sync with the maintainers, and then start contributing to that. Set up the project playwright dependencies, as we have already seen, clone the repo and then run the make commands that make targets that are actually there for running, creating installing the playwright dependencies. Develop and modify the test suite, run the test locally multiple times, open a CI, open a PR. The CI will actually run the E2E tests in GitHub Actions, as we saw earlier. So, how you can actually make impact as a new contributor? New contributors can add the test for covering uncovered pages or workflows, and improve test reliability and coverage. Helps with the flaky test. There is this way to schedule that if your PR is actually merged and uh, tests running in CI/CD are fading a bit flaky. Sometimes it's possible to tag the test using unstable. That's actually a uh, recommended thing. Suggest or implement UI improvements during the test writing. That is also actually welcome. So these are the resources that we saw. Yeah, this is the link to the playwright docs that I was actually telling about earlier. And this is the Meshery blog related to improving Meshery's UI E2E test that was written almost a year ago. But most of the things that you see here are still relevant. Mm, yeah. So if you go, this is actually a Meshery development meeting, which we conduct every Wednesday on December 18th. If you watch this in YouTube, somewhere around 18 minutes or something, Jarek tries to explain more about running the playwright tests because I think we had actually migrated to playwright recently. So, yeah. So, here you have the documentation for the test plan also. I think that's pretty much about a Meshery end-to-end test. I'm not sure whether I am actually missing anything or um, I don't think there is actually anything that I am missing right now. Yeah. There is this one quiz part that we can take because we have 10 more minutes. Ronak, would you like to actually take it over?
Yeah, sure. You can also participate on this one, Alex. So Kavita has prepared practice questions around this unit. Um, so let's make it a bit more interactive. This technology is used in the notification center for real-time event updates in Meshery. You can answer if anyone has any answer. You can share it in the Zoom chat. I wonder, Kavita, we could have something like 50-50, or we do
Uh,
not have
it's
in
a
KBC. I think it's
C.
50-50. Yeah.
No, this is actually
REST
C.
polling
Yeah.
and GraphQL. So,
Yeah, it's a GraphQL subscription. Yeah.
the other question is, how is client-side state managed in the notification center? Oh, we got the old brother.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Redux toolkit. Yeah. What happens when a notification does not have an event-specific formatter? Mm, Am I correct on this? Yeah. This format is specifically used to display structured error details. Oh, I think that's self-explanatory. See, what is recommended approach when adding a new UI component to Meshery that might be reused in multiple places? Would you like to make a guess, Alex?
It's B.
Um, yeah. So all of our components and that are directly being imported. So the design language, the in-house design system we have, it's system, and
Yeah.
all the projects speak the same vernacular of the system design, and they get reused in all of our projects. Front-end ones. Which front-end framework is primarily used to build Meshery UI?
Answer is given in the chat C.
Yeah, yeah. Which command installs or updates the UI dependencies for Meshery?
UI setup.
Yeah. What is the purpose of the make UI command?
Yeah.
Which library is used in Meshery UI for visual topology rendering?
C.
Cytoscape, yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know this one. Why does
Actually,
yeah
it's written
yeah
in our documentation. Like Cytoscape, it's used for creating the
mhm,
topology. Um, yeah.
okay. Why does Meshery UI use a schema-driven UI approach?
It's B. One of the things
Yeah,
is to generate forms dynamically.
yeah,
But that is not the only reason.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Schema is a critical part of all of our projects, and there are multiple reasons why we centralize all the logical constructs over there so that each of the projects can operate by uniform. Okay. What is the primary purpose of System in Meshery UI? Yeah, I think we just covered this one.
Design system and reusable. Yeah.
Yeah,
D. Correct.
D. Why does Meshery follow a schema-driven UI architecture? Oh, we have a duplicate.
Oh, yeah. Uh, I didn't
Mhm.
realize that I had duplicate. Sorry.
Which file acts as the construct index in Meshery schema development? Uh,
API.
API
Yeah.
or PR? So in Meshery schemas, we have a design document and one we have the API.yaml that lists all the API endpoints with their logical constructs that they would be using. That sorts of acts and an index. Where
Exactly.
are construct schemas stored in schema repository? Let's check it as well.
It's
Live.
A
Yeah,
schema
we go to schemas and constructs. So we
constructs.
do have
Yeah.
all the versions over here for different resources of schemas. Yeah, so it's schema/construct. What is the main purpose of UI widgets in Meshery?
B.
Yeah. Which of the following this describes a good widget design principle? Uh, yeah, see, Alex is catching that. Which tool is used for end-to-end UI testing in Meshery? Oh, that's the one that we are covering later. Where end-to-end tests run for every pull request. Mhm.
B, to ensure UI changes, whatever UI changes you are making does not break the existing functionality.
Yeah. Which environment variable is optional for UI test authentication? I
It's the
don't know
provider
this.
token
Okay.
because it depends on, no, it's not the mesh report, but it's a provider token because mesh report anyway, it's just the data, and remote provider user email password is used for connecting to the remote provider. As the
Mm.
provider token that is used for authentication into the system. Yeah.
Mm. What is the key benefit of using reusable system components?
A, yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
Let's submit the in any of the by the way in any of the units we didn't get a full score in these practice questions. Let's see if we can get it. No? Oh yeah, we received a full score. That's
Finally.
an achievement. Yeah, last unit and we received the full score.
Yeah, and I didn't mess up with the keys while I'm actually editing the file. Most of the
Yeah.
time, it was actually me messing up with the adding the key properly because I didn't re-verify it. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and um, I just read your Zoom chat, Alex. If you have any of the problems related to Meshery project, you can add me or Kavita or any of the other community managers on, for example, assigning issues or finding your area of impact where you can contribute to. So just feel free to do that.
Yeah. And also, I highly recommend to subscribe to our community calendar and try to attend almost all the meetings that we have. We have 4 meetings per week. Try to attend them. The UI based issues that you're working on can be discussed in the weekly websites meeting that Ronak is showing right now. They happen on every Mondays. Uh, and on Wednesdays, you have the Meshery development meeting. That's the place where we discuss about most of the UI or the server related, sorry, the server or the CLI related. Like there is a lot of epics that are actually being run with respect to CLI as well as uh, the server. So if you are actually working on any of those areas, it's better to attend that. But as a new joinee, I would recommend to attend all the meetings and then decide and then filter out meetings and attend according to your choice because attending all the meetings would actually be a very good way to break the ice and be comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very useful. And you can also check out the Mystery UI YouTube channel, and you can find all the past recordings of these sessions that we have conducted for this series of Certified Mystery Contributor. If you could navigate to the live section, you can find this will also be live, and you can find the oldest session. I think we started from February 13. So this is the first session of it. And here we are to April 24th. And, thanks a lot to Kavita as well for doing a lot of stuff around the series. But she's the one who made it possible to the volunteer initiative of it at first. But yeah, yeah, sure. So I think we are at time as well. Any closing thoughts, Kavita?
There will be one more session if Yash is comfortable, Yash Mahakal, because he has a lot of knowledge on Meshery relationships. So I mean that there is a lot of traction for that subject because that's also one of the topics that is there for GSOC and LFX mentorships, and a lot of people are actually working on that. So if everything goes well, we might have one more session next week before winding up this series of study hall programs for Meshery certification. Yeah, hope you
Um,
enjoy the session.
mhm. So thanks a lot, Kavita. Again,
Thank you, Ronak. Yeah.
thanks Alex as well for listening us. So we'll be seeing you on Slack. Keep the fingers if you have any queries. Till then, oh, thanks for joining.